I saw a cat tied to a wooden board, its eyes covered with a blindfold. Across from it, 3 drunk men sat at a table mocking it, and occasionally throwing small darts at the board, endangering its life. I always have that scene in my mind, and it will shock you too. Please subscribe and comment, "I love cats," and where you're watching from. By doing so little, we make a big difference. A subscription and a comment are just like giving a donation, because the video reaches more hearts, more eyes, and more ears, and we raise awareness among an entire population. The sun was a merciless hammer in the vast, bleached blue sky, beating down on the cracked asphalt of the county road. I had my windows down, but the air that rushed into my old Honda was hot and thick, smelling of dust and distant baking fields. I was heading to the annual state fair, a tradition I'd clung to since childhood. It was a flimsy excuse for a road trip, a way to escape the quiet hum of my apartment and the persistent feeling that I was a ship without an anchor, drifting through my late 20s. My GPS had died about 20 miles back, and my phone, in a spectacular display of uselessness, had no signal. I was, in the most classic sense of the term, lost. I'd taken a turn onto a road that looked promising on a faded paper map I found in the glove compartment, but it had slowly devolved from a 2-lane road to a single-lane path of gravel and packed dirt. The landscape was relentlessly flat, an endless expanse of dry, golden grass under a sky that felt too big, too empty. It was the kind of place that made you feel small and profoundly alone. A flicker of anxiety, cold and sharp, pricked at my chest. I was about to turn the car around when I heard it, a sound that didn't belong in the oppressive silence. It was laughter. Not the warm, joyful kind, but a harsh, guttural sound, ugly and sharp-edged. It was followed by a faint, high-pitched cry, a sound so full of despair it made the hairs on my arms stand up. Curiosity, mixed with a growing sense of dread, got the better of me. I pulled the car over to the side of the dirt track, the engine ticking as it cooled. I got out and walked cautiously toward the source of the noise, which seemed to be coming from a small clearing just beyond a cluster of withered-looking trees. As I drew closer, the scene came in horrifying focus, and my blood ran cold. 3 men, who looked to be in their 40s, were slumped around a rickety wooden picnic table. Their faces were flushed, their movements clumsy and exaggerated. A metal bucket overflowing with empty beer bottles sat between them, and they were in various states of drunken stupor. But that wasn't the part that made my stomach clench. In front of them, propped against a larger tree, was a crude, circular wooden target, and tied to the center of it, with rough twine binding its small paws, was a cat. It was a young tabby, painfully thin, its ribs starkly visible beneath its striped fur. Its head hung low, and a grimy black cloth was tied tightly around its eyes, a cruel blindfold against a world that had already shown it unimaginable cruelty. A faint, wretched mewling escaped its throat with every shallow breath. It was a sound of pure terror and exhaustion. The men were playing a game. One of them, a burly man with a faded baseball cap, would stand up unsteadily, take a small feathered dart, and hurl it toward the target. The other 2 would roar with laughter, their voices slurring as they shouted taunts at the helpless animal. "Look at it tremble," one of them bellowed, slamming his beer bottle on the table. "Bet you can't get any closer, Bill," one of them slurred, his words thick and indistinct. Thwack! A red feathered dart embedded itself in the wood, inches from the cat's head. The tiny animal flinched violently, its entire body seizing in a spasm of fear. It let out a desperate, choked cry. They weren't just throwing darts at a target. They were terrorizing a living creature for their own sick amusement. The scene was a tableau of casual brutality, a pocket of hell in the middle of nowhere. My first instinct was pure, unadulterated rage. A hot wave washed over me, and my hands clenched into fists. I wanted to storm over there, to shout, to knock their beers off their table, to untie that poor animal. I took a half step forward, before a cold dose of reality stopped me. I was one man. They were three, and they were drunk. Drunk men are unpredictable, their cruelty amplified by alcohol. Confronting them directly could get me seriously hurt, and it might make things even worse for the cat. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of anger and fear. I felt utterly helpless, a silent witness to a nightmare. Then my mind cleared. I couldn't fight them physically, but I wasn't powerless. I backed away slowly, carefully, making sure they hadn't seen me. I retreated behind the cover of the trees, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I looked at the screen. Still no signal. Panic began to set in, a thick, suffocating blanket. I had to do something. I couldn't just leave. I couldn't drive away and leave that cat to its fate. The image of its blindfolded face, its trembling body, was already burned into my memory. I got back in my car, my mind racing. I started the engine and drove, not away, but back down the dirt track, my eyes scanning the phone for any sign of life. After what felt like an eternity, a single, glorious bar of service appeared on the screen. It was weak, but it was there. I pulled over again and dialed 911, my voice trembling as I spoke to the dispatcher. "I need to report animal cruelty," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's happening right now. There are 3 men, they're drunk, and they have a cat tied to a target. They're throwing darts at it." The dispatcher's voice was calm and professional, a soothing anchor in my storm of panic. She asked for my location. My heart sunk. I had no idea where I was. "I'm on a dirt road. I got lost on my way to the state fair. I took a turn off the main highway, maybe 5 or 6 miles back." I described the landscape, the flat, empty fields, the cluster of trees. I gave her every detail I could think of. I could hear her typing, the clicks and clacks a lifeline. "Okay, sir, we have a patrol car in that general area. Can you describe the men?" I described them as best I could, their ages, their clothing, the metal bucket of beers. I emphasized that they were heavily intoxicated and aggressive. "Please, you have to hurry," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "I don't know how much longer that cat has." "A unit is on its way, sir. Can you stay on the line? And please do not engage with the men. Stay in your vehicle and keep a safe distance." The wait was agonizing. Every minute stretched into an hour. I drove back slowly, parking my car far enough away that they wouldn't notice it, but close enough that I could still see the clearing through the trees. I sat there, hidden, watching the horror show unfold. The men's laughter grew louder, more unhinged. They threw another dart and another. Each thwack against the wood was like a blow to my own body. The cat had stopped crying out loud. It was just now shivering uncontrollably, a tiny, silent victim in a world of monsters. I felt a profound sense of shame for my species. How could anyone find joy in tormenting something so small and defenseless? The image of the cat, blindfolded and alone, was a symbol of all the casual cruelty I'd ever seen. All the times I'd looked away because it was easier. Not this time. This time, I would see it through. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, I saw it. The dust cloud in the distance, growing larger. Then the glint of sunlight on a windshield. A Davidson County Sheriff's car was bumping its way down the dirt road. Relief washed over me so intensely my knees felt weak. 2 officers got out of the car. They were big men, their presence immediately commanding authority. They moved with a quiet, deliberate confidence that instantly calmed my frayed nerves. They saw me, and one of them held up a hand, signaling for me to stay put. They approached the clearing, and the scene played out like a silent movie from my vantage point. The drunken men's laughter died in their throats, replaced by looks of stupid surprise. I saw one of the officers point toward the cat on the target. The men started gesturing, their movements wide and sloppy. They were probably denying everything or trying to claim it was just a joke. But there was no joking about this. The evidence was right there, tied to a board, trembling for its life. The officers were not amused. Their expressions were granite hard. After a brief exchange, I saw them pull out handcuffs,
The drunken men's belligerence crumbled into pathetic, slurred protests as the cold steel clicked around their wrists. It was over. They were being arrested. One of the officers led the three men back to the patrol car, while the other walked over to the target. He spoke into his radio and then looked over in my direction and beckoned me to come forward. I got out of my car, my legs shaky, and walked into the clearing. Up close, the scene was even more squalid. The ground was littered with peanut shells and cigarette butts. The air reeked of stale beer and sweat. The officer who had called me over had a grim look on his face.
"You're the one who called this in?" "Yes, sir," I said, my voice hoarse. "Good job," he said, his voice low and serious. "You did the right thing. We'll need a statement from you down at the station." My eyes were fixed on the cat. It was still tied to the board, motionless except for the violent shudders that racked its tiny frame. "The cat," I started, not knowing what to say. The officer nodded. "Animal control is on their way, but they're coming from the other side of the county. It'll be a while." He looked at the poor creature, and a flicker of something soft crossed his face. "I can't just leave it here like this." He looked back at me. "You mind giving me a hand?" "Of course not," I said immediately. Together we approached the target. I spoke softly, my voice barely a whisper. "Hey there, little one. It's okay. You're safe now." The cat flinched at the sound of my voice, pressing itself as flat as it could against the wood, bracing for more pain. My heart broke. The officer used a small pocket knife to carefully cut the thick twine around its paws. As the last rope fell away, the cat didn't run. It just crumpled into a heap at the base of the target, too weak and traumatized to move. I gently, carefully, reached down and removed the filthy blindfold. Two enormous green eyes blinked slowly, trying to adjust to the sudden light. They were filled with a terror so profound it felt like I was looking into the abyss. It was painfully thin, a skeleton draped in fur, and its body was trembling nonstop. "Miserable," the officer muttered under his breath. Without a second thought, I took off my t-shirt, leaving me in my undershirt in the sweltering heat. I used it to gently wrap the cat, creating a soft, warm bundle. It was so light it felt like I was holding nothing at all. I held it close to my chest, trying to offer it some comfort and warmth, despite the heat of the day. It didn't fight or struggle. It just lay limp in my arms, shivering. "I can't just hand it over to a shelter," I said, more to myself than to the officer. "After this, it needs something more." The officer looked at me, then at the pathetic bundle in my arms. "There's a veterinary clinic in town," he said, giving me the address. "Dr. Evans. She's the best. Tell her Deputy Miller sent you." I thanked him profusely. As I walked back to my car, cradling the little life against my chest, I knew my plans had changed. The state fair didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered, except getting this cat the help it desperately needed. The drive to the vet was quiet. I had the air conditioning on full blast, and I kept one hand on the little bundle on the passenger seat, murmuring soft words of reassurance. The cat didn't make a sound. It just lay there, a fragile presence, its world having been shattered and now, perhaps, slowly being pieced back together. The veterinary clinic was a small, clean building with a sign that read, "Evans Animal Care." A woman with kind eyes and a blue scrub top looked up from the reception desk as I entered. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Deputy Miller sent me. I found this cat. It's in bad shape." I gently unwrapped the t-shirt to show her. Her professional, friendly expression dissolved into one of shock and compassion. "Oh, you poor, poor thing," she whispered, looking at the cat. "Bring her right back." She led me into an examination room. This must have been Dr. Evans. She was gentle and efficient, her hands moving with a practiced expertise that was comforting to watch. She examined the cat, checking its heart, its breathing, looking for injuries. Physically, aside from being severely dehydrated and malnourished, she seems to have no major injuries, she said, her voice soft. "It's a miracle. The darts all missed her. But the trauma, the psychological damage, that's the wound we can't see." I watched as she and a veterinary technician set up a small IV drip.
They carefully inserted a catheter into the cat's tiny leg. The cat barely flinched, too weak to protest. A clear fluid began to drip slowly into its veins, a life-giving elixir. I stood in the corner of the room, feeling like a nervous parent. I had known this cat for less than an hour, but I felt a fierce, protective bond to it. I had been the one to find it. I had been the one to call for help. Its fate was now inextricably tied to mine. Dr. Evans finished her work and turned to me. She's going to need to stay here for a day or two so we can get her stabilized, get some fluids and nutrients into her. But she's a fighter. You can see it in her eyes. What will happen to her after that? I asked, dreading the answer. Well, she'll go to the county shelter. They'll do their best to find her a home.
I looked at the cat, lying on the examination table with an IV in its leg, and I pictured it in a cage at a shelter, surrounded by other lost and abandoned animals, still carrying the deep scars of its trauma. I couldn't bear the thought. "No," I said, the word coming out with more force than I intended. "She's not going to a shelter. She's coming home with me." Dr. Evans looked at me, a long, appraising gaze. A small, genuine smile touched her lips. "I was hoping you'd say that," she said. "A trauma like this, what she needs more than anything is patience and a safe, quiet place to heal. She needs one person she can learn to trust again." 2 days later, I came back to pick her up. She was still painfully thin, but her eyes were a little brighter. She was clean, and she was no longer trembling constantly. Dr. Evans gave me instructions on her food and care, along with a bill that I paid without a second thought. I had bought a carrier, a soft bed, food bowls, and some gentle kitten food on my way to the clinic. I carefully placed her in the carrier for the drive home. This time she let out a small questioning meow. It was the first sound she'd made since her cries of terror at the clearing. It was a start. The first few days were difficult. I named her Willow because she had bent under a terrible storm but had not broken. Willow spent almost all her time hidden under my sofa. I put her food, water, and litter box in the living room, and I would just sit on the floor, reading a book or talking to her in a low, calm voice, telling her about my day. I never tried to touch her or pull her out. I knew I had to let her come to me. For a week, she was a ghost in my apartment. The only evidence I had that she was there was the food that would disappear during the night and the small clumps in the litter box. I was beginning to worry she would never trust me. Then, one evening, as I was sitting on the floor, reading, I saw a small striped head peek out from under the sofa. Her big green eyes watched me, cautious and calculating. I didn't move a muscle. I just kept reading aloud in a monotone voice. She watched me for a long time before, slowly, tentatively, stepping out. She was still wary, her body low to the ground, as she crept over to her food bowl and took a few bites, her eyes never leaving me. It was a huge step. The next night she came out again. This time, after she ate, she didn't immediately retreat. She sat a few feet away from me, tucking her paws underneath her, and watched me. I extended my hand, palm up, and laid it on the floor, not moving it any closer to her. She stared at my hand for what felt like an eternity. Then, with the caution that was heartbreaking, she took a step forward, and another. She sniffed my fingers, her little nose twitching, and then she did something that made my heart swell. She gently rubbed the side of her face against my fingertips. It was the lightest, most fleeting touch, but it was everything. It was trust. From that day on, Willow's transformation was miraculous. She started exploring the apartment. She discovered that sunbeams were wonderful for napping in, and that batting at a crumpled piece of paper was great fun. She began to purr, a soft, rumbling sound that was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. She became my shadow, following me from room to room. She would sleep at the foot of my bed at night, a warm, comforting weight.
She would greet me at the door when I came home from work, twining around my legs, purring her little heart out. The lost, terrified creature I had found tied to a board was gone, replaced by a confident, loving, and deeply affectionate companion. And in saving her, I had inadvertently saved myself. The quiet loneliness of my apartment was gone, replaced by the soft patting of her paws and her gentle purrs. The feeling of being adrift had vanished. I had a purpose. I had someone who depended on me, someone to come home to. This little cat who had survived the very worst of humanity had taught me about resilience, forgiveness, and the incredible healing power of simple, unconditional love. Sometimes when she's curled up on my chest, her purr vibrating through my body, I think back to that horrible day on that dusty road. I see the blindfold, I hear the cruel laughter, and I feel that same cold rage. But then I look down at the beautiful, trusting soul in my arms, and the anger fades, replaced by a profound sense of gratitude. I got lost that day, but in doing so, I found a part of myself I didn't know was missing. I found Willow, and we found our way home together.